Launching into a new series on trusting God in turbulent times. Thought it might be relevant for what we're going through. So I want to kind of give you a bit of an overview of where we're going to be going and then really launch officially next week. But I want to give you an overview of where we want to head. Lewis's Shakespearean quotation this morning, and I appreciate your work with this. He just gave me the back three ones that I'd missed. From Henry VI, let me embrace the sour adversity, for wise men say it is the wisest course. I don't know if you knew this, but this was really pretty inspired that you would come up with this particular quotation for this particular day. You didn't know I was going to launch into this series. And I think it's very significant because what does it mean, this idea of embracing adversity? How do we live in a world of turbulence and of uncertainty and of affliction and of setbacks? First of all, I want to say that affliction is a universal problem. There's just no way in this, shall we say, present darkness, to use an expression from Scripture, there's no way in this present darkness, in these shadowlands, to use an image from C.S. Lewis, that we can escape somehow from the fact that this is an abnormal universe. Things are not as they were meant to be. Things have been changed, things have been distorted. Because of the effects of the fall on every area of life, our lives have been decisively affected and will be permanently affected until the time when we see Jesus face to face. I like to put it this way in the Divine Comedy, and I use that imagery from Dante advisedly, because a comedy is not necessarily something that's funny, but it's actually something that ends well, as opposed to a Shakespearean tragedy. You know a tragedy when at the end of the play they're all dead, all the key people. But you know a comedy when what appears to be total chaos is suddenly unraveled. And suddenly everything comes back together in a coherent manner. And actually the pain of the confusion and the misunderstanding in that comedy leads to a greater process at the end, where there's actually greater character development as a consequence of that pain and adversity. So that good stories, plays, films, all of these have a real power insofar as they point beyond themselves to spiritual truth. That's why I like to say a story well told points beyond itself to the greatest story ever told. And that's why I'm a big believer in story and narrative, and that we are all immersed in a story. And the reality is all of our stories in one way or another are broken in every respect. Someone had certain fond hopes, dreams, aspirations, and they were somehow dashed upon the rocks of reality. The broken dreams and the things that are lost, the aspirations that we hoped for, we realize now have been shattered. And there are many things that we embraced as hopes that turned out to die. You and I in Scripture have been called, as it says in 1 Peter, to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. A living hope is a hope that therefore will never die. And he goes on to describe that inheritance that we have, that's imperishable, undefiled, will not fade away, reserved in heaven for you. So that he anticipates the final act. So that the first act begins in the decisive creation of God, who speaks space, energy, time, and matter all into being simultaneously. He speaks the universe into being. And it is from the mind of God that all these things emerge. And everything that we see around us is quite mysterious. In fact, we know that basically matter, that, as we call it, is slowed down energy. It's compressed and slowed down energy. No one knows what energy is. You can describe it, but you cannot define it. It's truly miraculous and mysterious. You can't even truly define time. You can't truly define spirit. We are surrounded in mystery, but even though we're immersed in it, we like to suppose we have control by creating and shaping a little world. And we take a little world and we try to shape the parameters in such a way that we have the illusion that we're in control of this life. When in fact, if you really think of it from a broad perspective, Whenever I do my powers of 10, I try to give people an idea of what it's like when I go 18 orders of magnitude down until I'm inside the quark, starting from, go down to 10 to the minus 18 meters. And theoretically, by the way, that's the limit of our knowledge. It can actually theoretically go down to 10 to the minus 35th limits. That's called the Planck limit. But that's another matter. It's inconceivable what's inside of that and what's inside of that and what's inside of that, like nested eggs. But then we go up 26 orders of magnitude, 10 to the 26 meters, 10 billion light years across on that last slide. And what I claim is that this thing we call a biosphere, the sphere in which there is life, which even on this planet is mighty slim. It's about 6 miles up, 6 miles down, that's it. That's the limit of the biosphere. Which if you could take the planet and make it the size of a beach ball, you wouldn't even be able to see it. It would be thinner than ink on a book, even much thinner than that. That's the biosphere. And in comparison to the cosmos, how much smaller? We are really floating on this little island on a sea that is incredibly wide. And we are really between the infinitesimally small and the terrifyingly large, if you really think about it. And this world of feet, this world of pounds, this is the world of the exception, not the rule. This is a world in which it has been carefully crafted. And the more we learn about the fine-tuning parameters of the universe and what it took for us to be here, the more impressive it becomes. There are now over 600 fine-tuned parameters. And to give you an example, the fine-tuning that God has in this wonderful creation, even though fallen, is exquisite. Insofar as the number of protons relative to the number of electrons must be so tight, so finely tuned, that if there's 1 part in 10 to the 37th more or less, you would not be able to form the matter we described. You wouldn't be able to form molecules. Thus, we wouldn't have the possibility of life. Let me just illustrate, and let me give you another. I'll give you a couple of them, though. Another one is the gravitational force relative to the strong force, and it goes on and on. All the major forces. Has to be the right galaxy. It has to be the right kind of. We have to be in the right place in the galaxy. It has to be a spiral galaxy. Only 5% of the galaxies are spiral. Even there, many of them are eliminated for various reasons, and we recently discovered that within a spiral galaxy, the right kind of spiral galaxy, there can only be life within 4% of it. There's what they call the galactic habitable zone. It's thin little 4% band. Any closer in, any further out, and for various reasons there couldn't be life. We happen to be in that 4% band. And it has to be right on the edge of the spiral arm, as we are, and it just goes on and on. Just to give you an idea of that figure I gave you before, because I want you to see this in the broader context of a fallen world. God so crafted the world that 10 to the minus 37, one chance in that, let me give you an illustration of that just to help you grasp that. You can't, but I'll give you. It's impossible. Heck, the number of McDonald's hamburgers that have been sold, I can't imagine. I try to conceive of something that's hundreds of millions of burgers. It's a grotesque image, a mountain of those things. Don't want to even think about that.
One of them is a gross image.
Even one. If you ever saw the movie Super Size Me, you know what we're talking about here. But just to give you an idea of that, take the national debt. No, please. When I heard this illustration first, it was compared to a stack of dimes on an area the size of North America. And how high would that stack of dimes need to be in the size of North America? It turned out to be about 3 feet. Now it's probably about 10 feet and rising, but still rather small in that respect. So now what I want you to do is to imagine North America filled with dimes. At this time, the dimes go up 239,000 miles. They go up to the moon. All right? And you have one One little dime in there that you have to find. But wait.